828, and this is when we have the opportunity to say, welcome, Mr. Nico Kleynhans. Nico, thank you for joining us in studio this morning. You've had some interesting experiences with regard to hospitals. Please share with us.
Yes, I've decided to choose two titles for this morning. One, my fellow South Africans, in honor of our president, who likes to talk to us as if we were a family. And then when Grumpy goes to hospital, to describe what I feel like when I go to hospital.
Oh, my head.
So I had to go to hospital this week, and my instructions were very clear. The doctor said, don't eat or drink anything for at least a couple of hours before you have to be here. Also, I had to stop taking medication about 4 days before the time because of blood thinners. They don't want me to bleed to death on their beds. It messes up the linen and things like that, so it's bad for business if you die while they're busy with you. So you arrive at 8 o'clock, where there's a very efficient a person waiting at a computer terminal, and they carefully talk you through a list of forms, about 30 pages as far as I could tell. And those forms obviously are there because of compliance. And the thing they seem to be worried about most often is that you're not going to pay the bills. And they need to make sure that you are who you say you are, and that your medical aid is valid, and that if your medical aid doesn't pay the bills, that you're going to agree to pay all the extra legal fees if they've got to recover that. So we get through all of that, and that takes about an hour. And then you are taken to the next stage, which is 2 floors up, where 3 very friendly nurses greet you. And they really are friendly. And then the first step is that you get on a scale, they weigh you, they check your height, and they give you a gown. Now, that's the polite word for what it is that they give you. I didn't mind that so much, but I did mind the gender-neutral underwear that they gave me that was designed for pregnant women. That's what it said on the packet. So now I've got to wear that, and then this semi-nude gown, and then I've got to go and make my way to my bed. So that's what I did. And then they bring these machines, and they do the ECG, they follow the blood pressure readings, and they've got to verify your health going back to your parents. So in my case, they go back 100 years. Because my mother was born 100 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And I've got to remember all her childhood illnesses.
That's impossible.
And my father's, and of course, I can't do all of that. So by now, it's 10 o'clock. I've been there for 2 hours, and they finally finished with me. And I can now focus on the other patients in the day ward who are about to get their processes done. So now I can hear their family history, because these wards are small. There are no secrets by the time you get to that. And the gentleman across the way from me has to have a blood transfusion. He doesn't want to receive a blood transfusion, not for religious reasons, but because he doesn't know where the blood came from.
Okay.
So he doesn't want other people's blood in his body. And now this poor nurse has got to explain that he needs 2 units of blood. And if he doesn't get the blood, then they can't actually do the operation.
Sure.
So that's her problem, because there's no doctor to try and explain it to him.
Yeah.
He's not going to listen. And by then they come and remove my bed, moving to the 3rd ward now in preparation. Now, at that point, these beds are fairly big. And I've noticed that the nurses who move you are very small people. So now you're thinking, well, at least this person's getting a lot of exercise.
Oh, shame.
Negotiates you into the lift, and up you go to the next stage, where you now wait for another 2 hours while something happens somewhere in this hospital. By 10:30, the surgeon appears for the meet and greet. The anesthetist appears to explain the process. Now, for me, that's very important. Those of you who know a bit about me know that I get very claustrophobic. You can't cover my face. You cover my face and I'm going to assault you regardless, because I'm going to go into stress and I'm going to go back to the time when the security police were working with me. And I'm going to react. So I've got to warn, in fairness, because one doctor didn't believe me, and they did believe me when they lay on the ground. So I say to you, you've got to deal with this in a different way. The anaesthetist wasn't going to take any chances, and I was put out as soon as I arrived in the theater, so I wasn't aware of what she was going to do to me. By 1 o'clock, I surfaced. By 2 o'clock, I remembered my name, and I was able at least to start talking. So why am I telling you this? I have an excellent medical aid, and I have very good gap cover. But when I saw the bills, I realized that probably 90% of South Africans are not going to be able to meet the bill for what happened to me in those 2 hours. And that's why I came to this, my fellow South Africans, because I'm wondering how often the politicians have any idea of what 90% of South Africans' reality actually is when it comes to medical care. And it bothers my conscience that people have now got to rely on state hospitals. And no matter how nice people are in those hospitals, at the end of the day, if the facilities are not there, you're going to take out your grumpiness on the staff rather than on the people who should be hearing your problem. My second issue that I have is that just as my motor car gets older, more and more parts are going to break. As I get older, more and more of my body parts are going to go down and need more attention. So the chances are, as I get older, I'm going to need more medical attention, and that is going to cost more money. So now this comes to where the listeners are. Often when we get to our budgets, we go onto survival mode. And I'm wondering, when we have our quiet times, if there are two important questions that we should be asking of God. One, how should I be allocating my budget differently? We've got a share-a-thon coming up. One of the questions you should be asking now is, what do I do about that share-a-thon? How is that going to affect my budget? And you need to be making a decision now, because you need to make a decision that you can stick to, and not an emotional decision which later you can't stick to. So that would be one thing. The second thing, you're working hard. And if you're just on survival, what are you going to do when you get to be older and things start getting tough and you haven't put aside money to look after yourself? So I want to encourage you, when you get to your quiet time, ask God whether you should be changing anything that you do not yet do, because it may affect the comfort you have when you get older, and it may certainly make life a little easier for you at that stage of your life. Have a good day.
Sure. Thank you so much, Nico. Really appreciate it so much.
The wind is moving, but I am standing.